You all like stories, let me tell you mine. Ex-corporal turned monster hunter. Left that sweet American dream of serving the states, making America great again. Not great in the sense that I will hunt terrorists or protect the borders, but something entirely out of context. You know what? Just keep munching on the chips, eat something spicy, maybe pork ribs, chicken nuggets, or the KFC, with some beer. Fuck, that would be amazing, isn't it? You can worry about obesity later. First, let me continue the next part of the story because the days recently has taken a toll on my mental health. Not the kind of physical pain. Bruised, battered, hammered body doesn't worry me anymore. Morphine's help, or the drugs Edgar, my mentor, feeds me from time to time. Had been hunting with the old fellow since the past years. So this is the third installment to my first story, hunting vampires that took residence over the noisy El Paso or the States or the Arctics. Does it matter where these cryptids lurk around? What matters is innocent lives, babies, children, old men, happy families. I lost my comrade back then in the desert. A werewolf dragged him in front of my eyes, and I was there hopeless with my M16 completely frozen at the look of the tall, hairy fucker, dirty saliva, and canines, the same protruded face, sharp, elongated, more like a wolf than a shepherd dog. Dreams of that encounter, yes, it changed me. Trump, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden talks. Hell, I understand these are in the news, but my head and my world and my universe, it's entirely on a different level. I hunt monster for a living. This is my story. Just listen to the first two parts to get a clear understanding. Here we are looking for a way to clear the neighborhood of the sneaky vampire fucks. It was sometime past 3 a.m. when Edgar's mutt finally stopped growling at the door. The rain hadn't stopped, just changed mood. Less dramatic, more deliberate, and the dark sky. We'd barricaded the place tight, UV arcs still buzzing, silver-etched locks in place, garlic powder bombs at every entry point. The vampire was gone, but the wrongness still clung to the air like smoke in an old church. Edgar hadn't spoken for 15 minutes. He paced like a cornered animal, lighting one cigarette off the last, staring through the slats of the blinds like he expected the Captain Vampire to stroll up and knock. "You good?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, not until we got boots on the ground. Not until I call the hounds that the Nigbor's going to get dirty. These suckers are going to feed on the neighborhood. God save them." I raised an eyebrow. "The hounds? Are they kind of you teammates?" He grunted. "Same line of work. Cryptid hunting departments." By 4:45 a.m., headlights cut through the rain. A matte black military van, tires humming with suppressed urgency. It coasted to a halt. First out was Preacher. Exorcist turned hunter. Not any feminine aura on her, but severely masculine dark energy. She wore a trench coat stitched with Latin verses and dog tags from 5 different countries. Carried a shotgun named Her Mercy, but a feeble voice. Next was Brick. Big enough, solid 220 pounds as per my guess. Didn't talk much, man looks he had seen his fair share of life. His left hand was silver. Literally, Edgar told me it was a prosthetic molded from a melted-down Celtic relic. Brick had once gone 3 rounds with a dogman in Montana and walked away with most of his face. Then came Waltz, the one they called the Butcher. Sleek, fast, always smiling. Used blades, not bullets. Said bullets were too polite. Waltz used to run with a vampire cult in Ukraine before he flipped sides and started carving sigils into their throats instead of bowing to them. You don't ask him why he switched. Last was Santos, the only one who still looked almost normal. Nerd glasses, clean jacket, digital tablets hanging from his vest like grenades. His skill wasn't combat, it was detection. Thermal, spiritual, ultrasonic. If something breathed, blinked, or phased through a dimension nearby, Santos would see it. Probably before you did. They stood in the rain, quiet. Edgar opened the door. "Come on in. We got bodies to stack." Yes, I know what you are imagining right now, the scene from Blade Right, with all the hounds packing up to hunt. Keep your imagination, folks. This shit is more serious. The way a dogman or a vampire kills in real, that's bloody gory. It's so bad that most men would puke right away. Human skin doesn't come out, like an animal's. Clothes tear up first, then slices of the first layer skin, teeth through to give their way to live flesh. Then blood ooze out if the cryptid cuts up your major artery. Then death gets easy, other way around. It would feed upon you like a bear, a salmon alive. Dogman feeds that way. It will go for your guts before you face. You would probably watch a hairy motherfucker eating your insides, like you feel your intestines pulled out, your body weight doing down, while you try to scream your lungs out, with shit and piss oozing from your shithole. Shit, I always go out of context. Sorry for that. The living room turned into a war council. Preachers set up the weapons table, laying out things no sane man should own. Silver claymores, ashwood crossbolts, vials of blessed river water, even a few stakes that looked like they were chiseled from petrified bone. Edgar gave them the debrief, short and brutal. How his old team tracked Delgado's killer to this block. How the scout vampire bled red and yellow. First sign something's not natural. How we ran headfirst into a captain-class vampire and it didn't even try to kill us. Preacher leaned back in the cracked recliner. They're reorganizing. Can they do that? I asked. Brick grunted. Not if they're feral. If they're thinking in structure again, someone old's moving. Waltz started sharpening his knives. Structure means hierarchy. Hierarchy means a court. Maybe old world. Edgar shook his head. Doesn't track. Court vampires speak, manipulate. This one didn't even look at us like equals. It was running us into a nest. And what did you see inside the nest? Santos asked. Santos opened his tablet, flipped through files, pulled up a black and white thermal scan. Your drone caught this before it shorted. The footage showed the building, grainy, soaked, empty at first glance. But Santos zoomed in frame by frame. There, etched on the floor, a spiral drawn in blood. Around it, dozens of vampire corpses, all facing outward like they were waiting to feed, old, young, some with wings. Maybe they're the evolved ones. Edgar stared. That's a summoning circle. Preacher cursed under her breath. They're reviving. Reviving what? I asked. Edgar's voice dropped. Not what but who. Tension broke only when Preacher cracked open a bottle of cheap bourbon and passed it around. Combat bonding. We all took swigs, some for courage, others for memory. Waltz leaned against the wall and finally spoke without sarcasm. You ever hear of the Wendigo Pack in Alberta? He asked. I shook my head. 6 hunters, all trained and armed. They were devoured in 30 minutes. Left only a boot and a single molar. He pulled back his collar, showed a jagged scar down his shoulder. That was the one I got away from. Only reason I lived? I was the bait. They thought I was dead already. Brick added, I've seen dogmen rip out truck engines to get to fresh blood. Saw one try to swim across Lake Huron once, half melted from the salt by the time it got to the other side, still chasing. Preacher nodded. And demons? Don't get me started. You think vampires are bad? Demons remember your dreams. And they wait for you to fall asleep. Then they feed on the weak ones, those who are facing anxiety and depression. Santos, quiet until now, looked up. None of that scared me half as much as what I saw in Nevada. That was something else. I looked to Edgar. You still never told me what really went down in Nevada. You keep saying classified. But if these bastards are coming from the past, we gotta know. Edgar exhaled, took another swig. His eyes were darker now, like he was watching a film only he could see. Nevada was a cover. Official reports said chemical weapons lab breach. What really happened was a gate. What happened to your team? I asked. They died, Edgar said flatly. Some inside out, some smiling, one of them? He still calls me from time to time. Number shows up as unknown. I answer, but he just breathes. Silence fell, and outside, the rain finally stopped. At dawn, the clouds broke. A ray of sunlight slid through the blinds and lit up the UV traps we'd reinforced around the house. Nothing had crossed the perimeter. Preacher rose. Daylight buys us time. But whatever built that nest, it's old. Santos flipped to the last frame of the drone footage. Zoomed again. There was a shape in the shadows. Just one frame, a tall silhouette watching the corpses in the circle. Edgar lit a fresh cigarette. Looked at all of us. Lock it down. Rest while you can. When night falls, we go back in. We waited with patience. Daylight came like a cold favor, not a blessing. Rain drizzled hard, clouds falling over the skies like evil lurked around, but it couldn't wash away the stench we'd brought back from the nest. That stink wasn't just rot, it was memory. Phantom blood and old sins. We decided to canvass the neighborhood in shifts. No guns, no armor, civilian clothes, normal folks walking their dogs, checking mail, sipping coffee. Just 6 broken hunters, or whatever you call, looking like burned-out janitors. Preacher and I took the West Street, past a cul-de-sac with too many perfect lawns. Hard to imagine blood-sucking freaks hiding behind candy canes and reeds, I muttered. Preacher sniffed. You ever notice the quieter the place, the louder the screams under the surface? We found a cat half-eaten in someone's backyard. Bones cleaned, eyes gone. No puncture wounds. Brick and Santos took the east blocks. They walked past the small park, down behind the elementary school. Kids weren't out yet. Waltz stayed with Edgar. Their job was containment, tightening the fencing, laying out the flares and sigils, double-checking the UV traps. Every entrance got wired. The garage was rigged with a counter-curse. Windows were etched with angelic script no priest alive could read. By noon, Santos started sweating. This place is cursed, he told Edgar through comms. Place smells like rot behind smiling teeth. Like death with open eyes. You mean corpses? I asked. No, he said. Not yet. It smells like soon to be. Around 2 p.m., we regrouped. Preacher laid out a map on the dining table, plastic still over it. 3 red XS marked the houses that smelled wrong. 2 of them were dark. 1 still had Christmas lights flickering outside. We go subtle, Edgar said. Knock, ask about utility surveys. Water pressure complaints. We check the vibes. You want me checking vibes? I raised an eyebrow. No, I will do it, Santos said. You look dumb and honest. I know the game, it works better. I didn't argue. I rang my parents to ask about them. Dad told they were in Texas busy with some known families. I sighed out relief. House 1, empty, mail piling up. No car, curtains drawn, the dog door was sealed from the inside. House 2, elderly woman. Kind, deaf, house smelled like medicine and guilt. Nothing supernatural, just the usual death marching in slow motion. House 3, door opened before we knocked. A kid, maybe 10, stared at us. You're too late, he said. Before we could speak, a man pulled the kid back. Sorry, he's not well, holiday stress, but thanks. Door slammed. Vampire mind games? Jace asked. Or PTSD or both, I said. That evening, Santos and Brick led a sweep behind the neighborhood. A small drainage canal ran down toward the woods. They followed it for half a mile. They found something in the brush. Bones stripped clean, it looked human. Next to them a Christmas stocking. Red and fresh blood soaked the inside. Back at the house, Preacher stared at Brick. "You've been quiet," she said. "I've got nothing to say," he replied. She tilted her head. "That's a lie. You've always got something to say. Especially when you're scared." "I'm not scared." "You're infected." The room went silent. "What?" Edgar asked. "He's got a psychic fracture," Preacher said. "I saw it this morning. There's something living beside him. Not in him, but just sharing space." "Can we extract it?" I asked. Mira shook her head. "It's not possessed, it's observed." Brick stood up. "I'm not a threat." "We know that," Edgar said quietly. "But you're a window." We fortified the block. Claymore-style UV mines. Sigil-stamped rain gutters. Every car was parked in a strategic choke point. If something wanted in, it would bleed doing so. Still, the sun dipped and the silence grew and the birds didn't return. And Santos sat on the porch, sniffing the air like a dog born under bad moons. Behind us, Brick whispered something under his breath. Words none of us understood. He wasn't acting right, not since we'd gotten back from the neighborhood recon. The guy looked pale, like all the blood had drained from him and settled in his boots. His jaw clenched too long when someone spoke to him. He moved too quietly for someone his size. I caught him once, late evening, when the rain had paused like it needed to breathe. I was checking the sensor grid again when I glanced through the cracked hallway door and saw him hunched in the corner of the spare room, facing away, shirt off. His back was wrong. Bent, arched like a crowbar. The spine too rigid, like bones were trying to push their way out. A raised split had formed between his shoulder blades, like the skin was preparing for something. Wings or growths or mutation. When I stepped in, he was gone. Slipped back into the main room like smoke, like he'd always been there helping check the ammo crates. The rest of the crew was taking naps in shifts. Edgar had gone silent, pacing the living room with a bottle of that rye whiskey he keeps hidden behind the false panel. "Dogman scars always itch before something bad happens," he once told me. I figured the bottle was to dull the itch. Outside, the UV grid buzzed low and soft, a lullaby for monsters. Inside, the house felt too quiet. That was when I started watching Brick harder. His appetite had changed, barely touched the salted pork. He winced near garlic. Didn't notice at first, but his shadow didn't quite line up with his body anymore. Moved half a second behind. Maybe it was the rain playing tricks. Or maybe it was the hollow choir we kept hearing whispers about those legends of ancient, thoughtless gods masquerading behind vampire teeth and bone. 3 hours later, Edgar made a call. "Rivka," he said her name like it was a warning and a prayer in the same breath. Rivka had seen things. Exorcised things. She'd hunted vampires in the Danube during the '98 outbreak. If anyone could make sense of what Brick was becoming, it was her. She answered fast. "If he's dreaming in tongues and sweating blood, he's marked." Edgar grunted. "He's twitching. Back's changing. Lost in thought. Doesn't blink enough." Rivka was quiet a moment. "You wait too long, he'll stop being Brick. He'll become something else. Something useful to them." Edgar hung up. Didn't tell the others. It was around evening when I noticed Brick was gone. The UV lights outside were still buzzing faintly through the rainfall. Everyone else was taking turns napping in scattered intervals. Edgar was cleaning his sidearm on the couch, and I had just poured myself a cup of coffee that tasted like dirt and nightmares. I crept down the hallway to check, and he wasn't there anymore. I scanned the floor. Wet footprints, but not boot prints. Barefoot, toes too long, they trailed into the west wing of the safe house, toward the guest room we kept locked. A wet snap echoed through the hallway. Then a scream cut short. Edgar was already moving. We burst into the hallway at the same time. Santos was sprawled in the foyer, neck bent, face twisted like he died seeing hell. His chest had been torn open like wrapping paper, ribs cracked outward. "Fucking hell," Edgar muttered, already raising his weapon. Brick was at the far end of the hall, shirtless, back arched like a malformed beast. His shoulder blades twitched violently, like something inside was trying to get out. His spine looked like it was pushing against the skin, and his mouth dripped thick, blackened blood of Santos. Brick darted to the left, inhumanly fast. But he didn't get far. Preacher and Waltz tackled him hard into the side room. The door slammed. Edgar and I lunged after them, using the thick steel bar from the kitchen closet to jam the handle shut. Inside the room, Brick was howling. It was part scream, part animal bellow. Flesh slapping walls. Claws, actual claws, scraping drywall. Edgar turned to the rest of the team. "Anyone bitten?" Then Waltz looked down. Blood on his glove. His hand punctured. "Fuck," I said. "Drop your gear," Edgar ordered. Waltz didn't argue. He sat down, eyes hard, jaw clenched. "Fuck, do it." We pinned his arm to the table. I held the shoulder. Preacher gripped his elbow. Edgar knelt beside him, pulled a curved blade from his medkit, silver edge, surgical. No hesitation. With a swift motion, he sliced off the left hand. It screamed, then bit down on his vest. Edgar wrapped the stump fast with gauze and a tourniquet. No signs of infection. That was clean. "You'll live." Waltz didn't flinch. Better than turning into that thing. The rest of the team wasn't panicked. No one shouted. No one broke down. These guys were built for war in places the world pretends don't exist. And this just another nightmare to adapt to. "Why did Brick turn, damn it?" I asked. "He was already infected," Edgar replied. "Maybe something called to him. Think of yourself as lucky that we still had time. Vampires to clean outside and this bloodthirst monster inside." From the locked room, we heard a dull thud. Preacher stood up. "We're not waiting for this to get worse." I nodded. "He's not coming back from this. We finish it." We geared up. UV flares, silver-edged blades, shotguns with phosphorus shells. My sidearm was coated in wolfsbane and tipped with hawthorn rounds, just in case. We unbarred the door carefully. Edgar counted down silently. 3, 2, and 1. We pushed it open. Brick was crouched in the corner, twitching. His back had torn open along the spine, 2 fleshy ridges protruding like half-formed wings. His fingers were bone-thin and elongated. His mouth was slack, lips gone, fangs jutting outward like cracked porcelain. He looked at us. His eyes were still blue. Then he jumped mid-through, attacking Waltz, knocking him back against the wall with a bone-crunching slam. Blood sprayed, but then Edgar fired, UV flare directly to the chest. It exploded in bright blue flame, searing Brick's torso. He screamed, a horrible, gurgling wail. Then he spun, claws slashing. He caught Waltz in the side. Waltz dropped, gasping, blood pouring from his ribs. I moved in. Sidearm up, 3 rounds full auto, 2 to the chest, 1 to the face. Brick didn't drop. He staggered, then leapt, took me down with the weight of a truck. My knife was out before I hit the floor. I jammed it into his neck, nothing. His hand wrapped around my throat, squeezing, fangs an inch from my face. Then Edgar hit him from the side with a silver baton, knocking him off me. Brick hissed, burning where the baton touched. I got him, Edgar growled. End him fast. I scrambled to my feet, grabbed the knife, and drove it straight through his skull, right eye socket to brainstem. Brick spasmed. His wings now seemed to fall down. then went still. We stood over the body, breathing heavy, blood everywhere. Edgar looked down. We did what we had to. We wrapped brick in tarp, took what we could salvage. Nate was patched up, conscious but pale. The rain hadn't stopped. The world outside still buzzed with false calm. Fairy lights still blinked on front lawns. Somewhere, a wind chime jingled. "Where to now?" Waltz asked, blood drying on his vest. Edgar lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "We bury what's left. Then we finish the captain or whatever we find across." I looked out into the dark. We were down a man, and Waltz was barely holding on after the hand-cutting ordeal and the injury brick battered on him. He sat in the corner, arm bandaged, silent. His face looked older, like something in him had aged a decade overnight. Edgar stood at the table, map of the block spread out, markers circling known vampire sightings. "We do this once, no repeats, no screw-ups." He looked at each of us like he was memorizing our faces. We geared up. Every piece of tech was laid out like religious artifacts. UV grenades, silver net guns, scent camouflage cloaks, pressurized dart guns loaded with tranks spiked with garlic and wolfsbane. My baby was the auto-loading crossbow apart from the primary and the secondary. Something from Edgar's collection that made me excited. Lightweight, carbon frame. Bolts tipped in powdered silver and wood core. Fast, precise, lethal, unless we wanted them alive. We prepped the scent masks, rebreather units loaded with burnt sage and chemically neutral camouflage, designed to fool vampire senses. At least in theory. Then we stepped out for our purge. We found a dead dog near the drainage canal. A lanky, pale figure hunched over something on the ground. Spine chewed through. Damn, these suckers were getting hungrier. They're not just feeding on humans, but animals too. I raised my weapon. "Hit it now." Tranquilizer darts flew. One struck it in the thigh. It screeched and blurred sideways, in human speed, but Preacher's net gun was faster. The silver-laced mesh slammed into its ribs, burning it on contact. Smoke rose and it shrieked again. I locked a crossbow. The thing howled and dropped. We clamped silver cuffs on its wrists, injected a second tranquilizer, and dragged it back toward the truck. "Still alive," I muttered. "Barely," Edgar said. The cage in the truck was reinforced steel mesh, coated with silver dust. UV lights lined the roof. We shoved the thing in, locked the cage, and stared. It looked alien-like a man and a bat had been shoved into the same skin and told to make it work. Its eyes were milk white. Its mouth was full of baby teeth. Its voice gurgled something. None of us understood the words. Then the wind shifted and the clouds didn't roll in, they slammed. Thunder cracked the sky like bones breaking. Rain turned violent, screaming against rooftops. Streetlights burst. Electric wires hummed like metal insects. Edgar whispered, "This is it." We understood what he meant. Edgar pointed toward the end of the block. "This is the one. The real one. The thing that chased me and him down that night." Lightning flashed and for half a second we saw it. The figure, taller than the others. Wrapped in black. Not clothes, but shadows. It moved like ink in water, unnatural, floating. Its mere presence was enough to send shivers down our spines, and we are trained to deal with the strongest threat. You know how people stiffen up when they encounter the dark? It is maybe the best possible way to describe what we felt. We have to lure it to trap and bomb it with all we got. We cannot get close. This is way more powerful than an entire dogmen army. Edgar hissed. Then came its voice. Not sound, but pressure. A violent scream inside your bones. Waltz dropped to one knee. "It's in my head." Edgar screamed, covered his ears, blood dripping from his nose. I fired blindly. "Get back." We formed a line, crossbows and guns raised, triggers primed. The storm raged harder, wind spinning in unnatural circles, and rain fell sideways. But the figure didn't move. The streetlights flickered violently like its presence overwhelmed the electrical signals around. And the vampire we captured started convulsing in the cage. Like it was being puppet. Edgar shouted, "It's controlling them. This is the Alpha." The storm broke as if the sky itself had torn open, a wild beast thrashing in fury above the neighborhood. Lightning jagged across the blackened clouds, thunder rattling every window frame in a symphony of impending doom. The rain hammered down in sheets, but it wasn't the weather we feared. No, this storm was something else entirely. A twisting of reality, a game piece moved by the Alpha itself. We were spread out, the whole team crouched low behind battered cars and cracked concrete fences. The captured vampire, caged and heavily sedated, snarled with animal ferocity, its eyes burning through the cage bars like molten coals. Edgar stood near me, shotgun gripped tight, eyes scanning the shifting shadows. As the rain soaked us through, a sudden flicker of movement caught my eye, a shadow darting between houses where no streetlights reached. The wind whispered, almost laughing, and the power blinked out, plunging half the block into darkness. "Light it up," Edgar commanded, nodding toward the UV grenades strapped to our belts. Flashing blue arcs snapped to life, slicing through the black like laser beams. The Alpha's domain pushed back, hissing and crackling as if wounded. But the darkness fought back. Street lamps sputtered, trees bent as if alive, and that storm? It was mocking us, twisting the world, making us question what was real. Our radios crackled with static and tension. Everyone was tense, muscles coiled like springs. The air tasted metallic, thick with dread. Suddenly, from the shadows, a shriek sliced through the storm, high and unnatural. The Alpha had struck. Edgar barked orders. "Form up. Keep the perimeter tight. Watch those blind spots." The team moved like a well-oiled machine, silent, deadly. Light scanned every alleyway, UV traps snapped to life on fences, silver-tipped bullets loaded, knives gleaming in the dim. Branches cracked behind us, a door slammed somewhere down the block, and through it all, the Alpha's laughter echoed, a cold, bone-chilling sound that sliced through the rain and wind. "We've got civilians trapped in the East Block," whispered Mira, eyes wide, voice trembling. "If this goes sideways, they're dead." Edgar clenched his jaw. "Protect them, no matter what." The hunt became a deadly dance, the Alpha striking from nowhere, then vanishing like a ghost, shadows twisting, walls seeming to breathe. We pushed forward, desperate to close the net. In the heart of the neighborhood, under flickering porch lights and shattered decorations, the final confrontation loomed. This was no ordinary fight. The Alpha played with our senses, warped the very world around us. "Stick to the plan," Edgar growled. "Don't let it get inside your head." But the Alpha's game was clear. Break us, make us doubt, tear the team apart. And as the storm raged, we prepared for the deadliest night of our lives. Edgar and I moved house to house, our boots slapping on soaked sidewalks, rain pouring down like the world was washing itself away. Every step was an echo against empty streets lined with homes that should have been safe. But tonight, safety was a lie. "Keep your voice low," Edgar hissed, pulling his soaked hood tighter. "We don't want to stir anything up. The environment's a mess already. People should feel it's all natural." I nodded, glancing sideways at the rows of houses. Christmas decorations flickered in the downpour, tinsel tangled in branches, broken string lights casting ghostly glows, and faded inflatable Santas deflating in puddles. The usual suburban charm twisted into something sinister under the storm's shadow. "From house to house, let's move," I said, knocking hard on the first door. The porch light flickered on, and a man's wary eyes peeked through the window. "Stay indoors," I said, voice urgent but calm. "Lock everything. Don't answer the phone. And no outside lights. Not even porch lights." The man nodded, pulling the door shut with a click that sounded like a lock snapping on a cage. "Next," Edgar said, moving ahead with a grim set to his jaw. We repeated the warning over and over, neighbors blinking, startled, eyes wide with confusion and fear. Kids peeked out behind curtains, wide-eyed, clutching blankets like shields. A woman in a pink bathrobe locked her front door twice before whispering, "Thank you, hottie. Wanna join for a drink?" My male urge that usually slips was numb. The rain hammered the pavement, masking our footsteps, but the storm's howl was an unnatural thing, shifting between wind and a low, guttural growl that seemed to come from the earth itself. "Edgar," I said quietly as we moved down the block, "this isn't just a storm." He glanced back at me, eyes sharp beneath his soaked hood. "It's the alphas making a show of power." We came to a house with a porch swing creaking in the wind. "Better get everyone sealed in now," Edgar said, pulling out a burner phone. His fingers moved fast, punching in numbers. "Special contacts," he explained lowly. "The ones who know the language of monsters, the ones who keep the lights off when the night turns to hell." I listened as his voice dropped to clipped codes and whispered warnings. Every syllable a promise that backup was coming, but not soon enough. Behind us, the neighborhood sealed itself, air vents clicking shut, power lines humming a low, uneasy tune, doors bolted and windows latched. The hum of city life faded into silence, punctuated only by the storm's unholy cries. We gathered inside the compound, the UV grid still flickering blue, a fragile shield against the encroaching dark. The vampire we'd captured sat sedated, its breath slow and ragged, but every muscle coiled like a spring. Preacher was checking her crossbow. Nate loaded silver rounds, hands steady despite the tension threading through the room. I leaned against the wall, heart hammering, every sense sharp. "We wait," Edgar said finally. "Daylight's our ally." Suddenly, a shadow flickered near the window. It lunged into the alleyway, claws scraping the wet pavement. "Line up the charges whatever you got. With the wire detonation, this motherfucker has to be caught up off guard." Edgar commanded. We set up charges with UV light, grenades, and whatever hell we had that would do the aftermath. Terrible thing was it was all playing with our minds, like our darkest memories were coming alive. We fired, silver bullets tearing the night apart. "Trap it!" Preacher shouted, tossing a UV grenade that exploded with a sharp crack, blue flames licking the edges of the alley. To our good damn luck that we hadn't even hoped for, it just appeared into the sweet spot, which was planned. And this was it. The remote clicked. And the whole fucking thing with a meaningless shape amidst the dark surrounding was welcomed with flash of painful UV and RDX. The beast screamed and vanished like a nightmare. Was it dead? I don't think so. The calm shattered again as two hulking shapes emerged from the fence line. Like the ground gave a mild shake, with the fences vibrating. In that noisy night, shallow breaths could be heard approaching. 8 feet above the ground, and if I am not mistaken, these were dogmen. The two red eyes couldn't be mistaken. What the hell now? Why would these wolf-faced monsters arrive to the scene? Nothing made sense at all. Silver bullets cracked, claws tore through flesh and fabric, and the air filled with the stench of blood and rain. Preacher, Waltz, Edgar and I. And our fight with the dark forces. I grappled one dogman as it held my shoulder, might have even scratched the skin. Pain flared bright and hot. You know what helped? The auto-mag crossbow. Sucker got bombed with 10 if not dozen of premium silver shots. Edgar shouted, "Hold the line." The ground trembled beneath our feet. Trees bent like dry grass. Power lines snapped, sparks showering down. We managed to kill them both. Amidst the chaos, we dragged them to the back of the truck. Best part about the job, we don't leave any evidence behind. Numbers do help. Alone I don't stand a chance without proper planning. Not a chance in hell that I would make out alive from 2 dogmen trying to eat me alive. Edgar's gaze flicked to the sedated vampire in the corner, its pale chest rising and falling in ragged breaths. I knew for sure that thing is going deep into the sulfuric acid tank after going through all kinds of rogue experimentations. The neighborhood was deathly quiet, too quiet. Not the kind of peace you'd find at 3 a.m. when the world finally sleeps. This quiet ached, like something had held its breath for far too long. Even the wind stayed still, as if scared to brush against the old manor that sat like a tumor at the edge of the block. We had eyes on the target, the main nest. You remember what I told you about the old abandoned building where these creatures were brewing? It used to be an estate owned by some oil tycoon back in the 50s. Now, it looked more like a mausoleum. Stone walls blackened by time and smoke, windows bricked shut like the house was trying to suffocate itself. Perfect hiding place for a clan of bloodsuckers. Edgar hobbled forward on his cane, his legs still messed up from the last run-in. His mouth was tight, like he was biting down a scream. "You good to go?" I asked, watching his foot drag. Waltz cracked his neck. Preacher double-checked her drum mag, silver-tipped rounds gleaming under the moonless sky. Edgar and I were checking det cord lines, muttering prayers under our breath. We were ready, or we pretended to be. "Set the charges," I said. Preacher and Waltz peeled off, vanishing into the shadows around the house. RDX and silver mesh wrapped around the foundation, wiring fast, tight, deadly. We regrouped by the warped iron gate. Preacher looked back at us. "Once we breach, we don't go back. This ain't gonna be clean." Edgar handed me the detonator. I looked at the house one more time, then pressed the button. The world split. Light, heat, and noise slammed into us like God threw a hammer from the clouds. The foundation cracked, fire blooming out like in every possible way one could describe annihilation. Debris shot into the air, and screams, inhuman, feral, rose from the center. We charged, smoke swirled around us. Figures moved inside, twitching, snarling. Fangs caught the firelight, shadows leaping from every corner at us. Preacher dropped one with a headshot. Waltz, holding his primary in his only working arm, jammed a silver spike into a sucker's chest. I fired controlled bursts, one after another, each impact releasing a burst of sparks and black blood. But they were everywhere. "Left flank!" Edgar shouted. A vampire lunged out of a ruined hallway. Sound of wings soaring above the collapsed hall echoed. Waltz tried to shoot, but it got him first. Ripped half his face off before Preacher could put it down. She dragged him back, his blood soaking her shirt. Then Preacher went down. 3 vampires attacked her, at once, biting through armor, chewing flesh. Her painful voice couldn't even be heard. Like a fucking madman, she pulled off a grenade while we jumped off just in time to the broken corridor. I felt claws slash my arm. Fired blindly, my hearing vanished for a moment, replaced by the sound of blood pounding in my ears. "Fall back!" Edgar yelled. "This whole thing is coming down." Somehow, just somehow we made it out. Edgar managed to trigger the main charges that were set to the supporting columns and pillars of the foundation. The whole installation crumbled. The house burned. Black flames, no ordinary fire. Black flames were reminder of the damage we did to evil. And inside mangled sounds and shrieks under collapsed concrete. The silver was doing its job, sickening them, slowing them. But the nest wasn't dead. Not even close. Edgar was white as a sheet, blood soaking his pants. I wrapped his leg. He didn't make a sound, just stared at the fire. At dawn, the cleanup crew rolled in. Not police, not fire, but them. The special units that we call to clean up stuff. They showed up in matte black trucks with no license plates. Men and women in hazmat gear, carrying silver-plated flamethrowers and bone saws. No names, no greetings, just work. They bagged Waltz like biohazard. One of them clicked his tongue. And Preacher's body was nowhere to be found. "We'll say it was a gas leak," he muttered. "Gas and lightning." Another one glanced at us. "You both need to be off the grid for a while." "Where's the main body count?" I asked. "Still calculating. Burned beyond shape. Could be dozens." Edgar leaned against the truck, legs splinted and eyes half closed. "We didn't kill the Alpha right," he murmured. "Just pissed it off." "Then we'll be ready," I said. "Next time, we finish it." I looked out at the wreckage. At the burning house. The storm had settled by then, giving way to beautiful morning sunlight in El Paso. Things seemed so bloody normal, except for our truck that had an alive bloodsucker and 2 dead dogmen. We arrived at our place, unloaded the dogmen bodies and the captured sedated bloodsucker. Edgar went to work, no advice or questions or time for mourning. In the corridor lay dead Santos and Brick's body, which was now dead white as cloud. "What about them? Are we going to cremate them?" I asked. "We cannot risk it. Need to go with the same procedure as we do with the monsters. Operate, learn, put in acid and keep them in basement until prices show up. Buyers will call and we then transport." Edgar said. It sounded rough, inhumane, but I knew that was it. We are monster hunters after all. Cannot show emotions when we got a world to protect. Till next time, fellas, another hunt and I will narrate another story. Till then, let me enjoy my beer. If you liked what you heard, please show some love and do subscribe to my channel. It helps the channel grow. Till then, stay curious and remember evil do exist and so does good. And in the end, we shall triumph over evil. Thank you very much.